Hey, family. So I asked you at the top of the show, have you considered maybe transitioning your gifts, your talents, your skills, your experiences into a higher purpose of work? You know, a lot of times we think about what we have, what we're doing, but we also think about, man, if X would happen, I would love to use my gifts and my talents in a different space. And often for many, that's the nonprofit space, thinking about how they can put their energy into nonprofit, purpose driven work. And so there's a couple things I want to share with you from an article that Jay wrote, and I'll give you some of my own personal experience as well throughout to help you see it differently, maybe plan it differently, and maybe take some steps, right? Even before making the transition, maybe take some steps before making the transition. So let me start here with a piece of data. I thought this data was so apropos, and I'll just tell you, for those who've seen my book, Success in Your Own Terms, I started with some data points as well, which was more than 60% of people were dissatisfied with the work they do today, more than 60%. This is more recent data from a Harvard Business Review study that 9 out of 10 employees were willing to trade a percentage of their lifetime earnings for greater meaning at work. Just think about that for a moment. 9 out of 10, 90% of people said, I would trade my lifetime earnings. I'll trade money to have greater meaning at work. That's a heck of a statement. It'd be one thing if it was 10%, even 20, 30%, but 90%, 90% of people said, I would trade money for greater meaning at work. That says a lot because oftentimes we look at what's happening in the world and we believe that we're in a evolving state. People don't care about things. People are so caught up in self. The data says different. And so I'm encouraged by that. I don't know about you. I am encouraged by that. But the second thing, really grip this. When polling more than 2,000 respondents, the average person equated that number of what they were willing to give up to 23% of their lifetime earnings. I'm willing to give up a fifth of my lifetime earnings to have greater meaning at work. So this could be you. The odds are this is you. The odds are you represent 9 of those 10 people. You are one of the 9. I'm believing that. If you listen to Holy Culture Radio and my show, The Correlating Solution, I'm believing you're one of the 9 out of 10. So let me give you 4 steps to help you potentially make such a transition. Step number 1, start volunteering. There does not have to be a binary switch or a polar bear plunge to jump into that nonprofit work. You don't have to go from leaving the job this Friday to starting full time in that nonprofit work on Monday. You can start with some volunteering, and the benefits of volunteering are obvious. 1, get your feet wet. Actually do some of the work because it's different from conceptualizing what that work will be like and to actually doing some of it, touching it, feeling it. And either it's going to exceed your expectations, it may meet your expectations, but it also may not meet your expectations, which, by the way, is not a bad thing. It just means a pit stop on the road gave you new insights that tells you instead of going straight down that road, you may need to veer right a little bit to find that thing you were looking for. So start volunteering. Number 2, network constantly. And I will tell you personally, I did not do enough of that before I made my transition. I'm raising my hand. I should have networked more because you know what I found out? After I was fully into it and what we wanted to do at the Correlating Solution, Correlating Ministries, etc., Holy Culture, and reach youth, once I started networking in the state of Delaware, I found there were at least 150 or more organizations doing some similar work. So it's not that it changed what I wanted to do, but it definitely changed how I wanted to approach it. I don't want to be duplicative. I wanted to be complementary. And so how do I then work within that network, if you will, of 150 so organizations and make sure we can add value, that we could partner, that we could create synergy? And so I wish I would have done more networking before making a transition. It would have eased my transition. It would have perhaps helped me gain more momentum earlier on, right? Because I would not have been looking to be duplicative. I would have been on a road to do something sooner with much more insight. So network constantly as you think about this. Third tip, stick to what you know. And I'll rephrase that a little bit. Use what you have. Use those experiences and things. There's something that happens sometimes when you go from working in for-profit, small business, medium-sized company, large enterprise businesses, etc., where we almost want to leave behind the things we did and come into this new space and with this right, that is so different, and I want to make this impact, but for some reason I feel the need to leave these experiences behind, and I'm not sure it's a conscious decision, but I do want to say make the conscious decision to bring your experiences with you, bring the organizational skills you've attained, bring the technical skills in a particular area that you've obtained. Bring the people skills and how to navigate through a large organization, or if it's a smaller company, bring those scrappy skills of having to play multiple roles because it's a smaller business. Whatever those things are that you've learned throughout your time in industry, so to speak, bring it over into the nonprofit. It will add a tremendous amount of value. And then the fourth tip, as you really are ready to pull the trigger on making a transition, tailor your resume as such. Try to lift out the things within the resume that highlight some of the accomplishments that are going to be applicable in terms of those experiences to this space you want to work in. One of the things that can happen with resumes is you can get very used to listing out some of the bullet points of the responsibilities of the jobs that you've worked in. And for me, and I think a lot of professionals have said this, it's really about, well, what did you do in the role? It's one thing for me to understand the job description. It's another thing for me to understand what you did. That points to, again, experience, accomplishments, growth, learning, etc. And that helps me then make a connection as a hiring employer, what you may be able to bring to the table for our organization. So again, family, if you're thinking about using your gifts and talents for a higher purpose of work, consider those four tips.